Hi, and welcome to the Alive Media Author Series. I'm Steve Wagner. Buying and selling a home is one of the most important and expensive decisions we make in our lives. But the sad fact is, many buyers and sellers don't have the pertinent information they need to make the most informed choices. Fortunately, the Home Sweet Home Handbook is here to answer those crucial questions. We're here with the author of the Home Sweet Home Handbook, Ron Kaminski. Ron, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for inviting me.
What made you decide to write the Home Sweet Home Handbook?
Well, there were several reasons, including the fact that I had witnessed problems in real estate, either because of attorney clients or because of work I had done for financial institutions. And I found that there might have been specific books, like, for example, How to Become an Appraiser, but there wasn't anything in the market that would go from A to Z, especially written for the average layperson who didn't want to be lost in a great deal of technical jargon, but wanted to be able to get a better handle, under the theory that knowledge is power.
Right.
So it became kind of a thing that grew,
right,
little by little.
Right, something that's really straightforward and easy to understand for the layperson like myself.
That's right. And as I went into it, I began to get new ideas for the next chapter and the next chapter. And it is an evolving process that will continue.
Compared with other books on this topic, how is the Home Sweet Home Handbook unique?
Well, a few years ago, after some friends of mine encouraged me to, get back involved with this book, I went on sites like Amazon to find out just what was available if I was looking for property, and I've been a homeowner as well as doing work for clients. And so I decided that we'd have to start with some basic fundamental knowledge. For example, what goes into a real estate contract? How does one search for a mortgage? How does one look for a house? How does one pick a contractor? And this is what led to the 20 chapters and the 8 appendix materials.
Tell us about your background as an appraiser. What made you decide to become an appraiser in the first place?
Well, years ago, I guess you would call it a midlife crisis situation when I was thinking, okay, what am I going to do next phase of my life? And I decided finally to take a battery of tests with the Johnson O'Connor Institute in San Francisco. They're based out of Boston. And there were 4 days of testing to determine what my real, talents were. Not my interests, but my talents. So at the end of the 4 days, they said, Ron, you should be a lawyer, reporter, detective, or an appraiser. And I thought to myself, I haven't done appraisal work, but I've always had an interest in real estate. I used to climb over construction sites as a kid when the workmen were gone. And so that's what led me to take a course with somebody who was a senior appraiser from Wells Fargo Bank. One thing led to another, and I found myself being able to enjoy the work because it involves both brain work as well as hands-on.
When we think about economic problems, we often think that this is a function of the banking industry, but the real estate market really does play a large role in economic problems. When you consider the savings and loan debacle in the 1980s or the Great Recession of 2008, how do you see the role that was played by the real estate market?
So I've always had an interest in both history and poli-sci, which in many cases today is called political economics. So I have read many books and kept up on that. And real estate happens to be the biggest industry in the country. It not only is a huge industry by itself, but it creates so many other industries. Once a house is purchased, people need furniture and whatever. And so anything that happens, positive or negative, in real estate is going to ripple very quickly, through the country. It's not only our country, but abroad, because so much money is invested from abroad in our country.
In light of the last crisis and considering the current reality of the banking industry, regulations, even politicians, how do you feel about the future? Do you feel positive about where we're heading, or are you concerned that perhaps we may be running into some more trouble soon?
The government, the politicians try to prevent the savings loan mess from occurring, but unfortunately, the financial industry had such control, including political control, that they removed some of the safeguards from 1932 and 1933, and we ended up with a casino. And since real estate was such a lucrative business, more so than, say, corporate bonds, we ended up in this casino that led to the 2008 Great Recession.
Right.
And we haven't fixed it yet, because now financial institutions will control the selection of the appraiser. I personally think that the buyer or seller should pick an appraiser, and then another independent appraiser may want to review that work,
Right.
either for a bank or on behalf of a government agency. But as long as the people with the money pick the appraiser, there's going to be the same temptation again. Remember, it's greed,
Sure.
and we'll end up with another problem, and it may even be bigger, just like the Great Recession was much larger than the savings and loan mess.
Right. Well, we all want our economy to be healthy. We all want the real estate market to be healthy in general. But in terms of individuals, how do we as individuals find the information that we need to not be sort of taken in this very difficult and often mysterious process?
Well, the old rule that knowledge is power always applies. And of course, the people who basically cause this mess always blame the consumer, saying that greedy homeowner shouldn't have refinanced and bought their car. But they were pressured. They were constantly solicited with these great offers, etc. At any rate, it's possible for someone, if they had unlimited time, to go on the internet and Google everything, and a few years later have what they need, but that's not realistic. What they need is a quicker, more of a shorthand way to get to the basics, whether they're, what type of mortgages are available. How do you screen for, a purchase to find out about the neighborhood, the quality, condition, etc. How do you understand these contracts that you have to sign at the last minute at the title company? If you want to take it slow, you don't have to read my book, once in one sitting. There's some parts of it require you to, go slowly, but take some notes, go through it, take a few weeks, and put together, a reminder list for yourself when you're looking for a neighborhood or checking out mortgages or whatever. Okay?
Right.
So I'm just saying that's a start. I don't answer every possible question because that's impossible with 50 states in this country. But at least I'll give you the basic information without giving you legal advice, which you need to get from somebody more competent, depending upon your state, county,
Right.
local conditions. But at least here's something that you can take, and I think you'll find that once you get into it, you'll be more and more absorbed. But some chapters are easy to read, some are difficult to read.
The Home Sweet Home Handbook covers a lot of ground. It's a very extensive book. It has 20 chapters. What would you say are the highlights or the most important elements of the book?
I think, first of all, you should just have an overview of the market, macroeconomics without going to college, but just understand, what are the good or the bad things in the market. Because ignorance is not bliss, not when you're going to probably have the biggest investment of your life. We start with that. Now, you may be more interested as an individual. You may be more interested in, buying or selling, or you might be more interested in remodeling your house. You may have a specific interest. Or maybe you just, are more history oriented. Well, work on that part of the book first. And then eventually scan the other chapters. And by the way, feel free to comment, because I asked in my notice up front, give me your critiques, give me your ideas, because there will be some more information, since this is an evolving market.
Right.
And there will be more other sections which will be available for people who purchase the book.
I noticed the Home Sweet Home Handbook has a very extensive appendix. That tells me that the book was very well researched. Can you tell us about that aspect of the book?
Actually, I wrote the old-fashioned way. I wrote all of the key words on 3x5 cards and then sorted it alphabetically. Of course, computers can do that automatically today. But by sorting it from A to Z, I wanted to make sure that there were no words or key terms that people would not understand, because I get very annoyed when I read a book and somebody's quoting something in French and doesn't tell me what they're saying, or some technical term. Explain it to me down below or somewhere so I can get the gist of the sentence. So that was a factor for the appendix material. Likewise, all those keywords were in the index, and thanks to computers today, you can zero in on exactly the pages where those keywords and phrases come from.
As the real estate industry market changes and evolves, people really need up-to-date information to answer those pertinent questions. Do you plan on doing revisions of the Home Sweet Home Handbook as we move forward?
Yes, revisions and additions. Because there will be changes, for example, in the law, especially federal law. I'm not trying to quote all state law, but the federal law, there will be changes. And I want to make certain that we're on top of that. Also, for example, I have a chapter that I added on just home styles, and I was surprised. I thought there were 9 or 10 basic. It turned out to be there's more than 40 or 50. There will be an eventual chapter on just home interiors. So if someone says, what's a chair rail? It's going to be in the book. And in one thing or another, those terms will be in the book. And of course, you can then Google or Wikipedia and get even more detail, because I'm not going to supply a 1,000-page book. But I will suggest things that might be useful. So if you're looking for a Cape Cod colonial and you want, whatever inside, that'll help you sort to your own mind so that you can narrow the process. Because once you narrow the process, you're better able to focus. That will help you making a purchase or a selling decision.
Right. Well, the Home Sweet Home Handbook is extremely informative, and I believe a very important book. It answers for the average layperson so many of the questions we have, and a lot of questions we don't even know that we need to have when we go into this process. Thank you so much for writing the book, Ron, and thank you so much for being a guest with us today at the Alive Media Author Series. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you. We wish you the best, and we hope to have you back very soon.
Great, thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you.
It's a pleasure.